Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Samini Tinamine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Sunnoti Paschata Deshatarine Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Sivasari Gaura Bhakta Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Sivasari Gaura Bhakta Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare Hare Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Rama Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Rama Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Krishna Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Prabhupada Jaya, 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 Guru Deva Jaya, Guru Deva, Guru Deva Jaya, 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 Guru Deva. Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaur, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaur, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaur, Hari Bol. Jayam Vishnupad, Paramahamsa Paribharaja Acharya, Ashtotara Shata Sri Srimad Srila Bhai Charanavinda Bhakti Vedanta Swami Jagadguru Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON BBT founder Acharya, His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Prem se kaho Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Adaita Gadadhar Sivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gop Gopinath Shyamakunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhan Ki Jai. Vrindavan Mathura Dham Ki Jai. Mayapur Navadip Dham Ki Jai. Jagannathpuri Dham Ki Jai. Rajoni Ramaniti Dham Ki Jai. Wednesday Bhagavad Gita Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. So the Vaishnavrinda Ki Jai. Nitai Gaur Pramanande Hari Hari Bol. All glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to Sri Sri Guru and Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Hare Krishna, dear devotees, Prabhus and mothers. Thank you for coming to this session of Bhagavad Gita. So we are serving chapter 7 on Bhagavad Gita, and we have come to chapter 7, text 14. We finished, and then we had a Janmashtami, Radhastami, so we kind of see. Yeah, we finished 14 last time. So just refresh, and someone can help to read the text 15, chapter 7, and then we can continue our recitation.
I can read, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Mother Rashmi ji. Nice to hear from you. Okay.
Now, the verse and the purport, the verse and the purport, right? Translation and purport.
Yeah, just 1 second, let me see. We're going to first chant 3 times. Wherever you are, you can fold your hand and pray to Lord Vasudev under Srila Prabhupada's guidance, so that our consciousness can perceive this wonderful description. Just to let you know that actually I was doing little research today. All morning we had a program, and then we went to breakfast for in Lal Govinda Prabhu's house. It was so big breakfast that I forgot for lunch or anything else. So then we were discussing on th Canto Bhagavatam, 9th chapter, verse 28. It's very fascinating because it's related to next two verses, 15 and 16. It seems like Krishna, someone may say Krishna is criticizing those human who are not taking this path. And there is a good reason why he is so heavy. Krishna is heavy. I don't need to defend Krishna. Nobody needs to defend Krishna. Krishna is alone knows what he's doing 100%. He doesn't need anybody's advice. But we are in a rotten condition, so we need to understand. So in that verse, Krishna says very interesting things. That after he created all the species, his heart remained dissatisfied. And then he created human being who possess intelligence to see God or Krishna. Then Krishna was so happy after human form was created. So Krishna is even happy that we have a human form. But he's not happy just because of the human form, but because human form has intelligence, a particular intelligence that you will be able to see or perceive Krishna in that form. The animal form and other cannot. So with that note, let us offer our homage to Lord Vasudev by chanting this mantra, beautiful. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritam Naran Chaiva Narottamam Devim Sarasatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Budirayet Nasta Prayesu Abhadresu Nitam Bhagavato Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Sloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naistaki Mukham Karati Vachalam Pangulangayate Girim Jatkripatamaham Bande Sri Guru Dinatarinam Sri Chaitanya Isharam Paramananda Madhavam. Okay. Mother Rashmiji, you would like to
Yes.
recite? Okay. 7th chapter, text
15.
15.
Hare Krishna. Namam dushkriti mudha prapadyante naraha maya paratha jnana asuram bhavam ashitaha. Those miscreants who are grossly foolish, who are lowest among mankind, whose knowledge is stolen by illusion, and who partake of the atheistic nature of demons, do not surrender unto me. Purport by Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki jai. It is said in Bhagavad Gita that simply by surrendering oneself unto the lotus feet of Supreme Personality Krishna, one can surmount the stringent laws of material nature. At this point, a question arises: How is it that educated philosophers, scientists, businessmen, administrators, and all leaders of ordinary men do not surrender to the lotus feet of Sri Krishna, the all powerful personality of Godhead? Mukti or liberation laws of material nature is sought by the leaders of mankind in different ways and with the great plans and perseverance for a great many years and birth. But if the liberation is possible by simply surrendering unto the lotus feet of supreme personality of Godhead, then why don't these intelligent and hardworking leaders adopt this simple method? The Gita answers this question very frankly. Those really learned leaders of the society, like Brahma, Shiva, Kapila, and the Kumaras, Vyasa, Devala, Asita, Janaka, Prahalada, Bali, and later on Madhvacharya, Ramanujacharya, Sri Chaitanya, and many others who are faithful philosophers, politicians, educators, scientists, etc., surrender to the lotus feet of the Supreme Person, the all powerful authority. Those who are not actual philosophers, scientists, educators, administrators, etc., but who pose themselves as such for material gain do not accept the plan or path of the Lord. They have no idea of God. They simply manufacture their own worldly plans and consequently complicate the problems of material existence in their vain attempts to solve them. Because material energy nature is so powerful, it can resist the unauthorized plans of the atheists and baffle the knowledge of planning baffle the knowledge of planning and commissions. The atheistic plan makers are described herein by the word dushkritinaha or miscreant. Kriti means one who has performed meritorious work. The atheist plan maker is sometimes very intelligent and meritorious also, because any gigantic plan, good or bad, must take intelligence to execute. But because the atheist brain is improperly utilized in opposite the plan of the Supreme Lord, atheistic plan maker is called Dushkriti, which indicates that his intelligence and efforts are misdirected. In the Gita, it is clearly mentioned that material energy works fully under the direction of the Supreme Lord. It has no independent authority. It works as a shadow moves in accordance with the movement of the object. But still, material is very powerful. And the atheist, due to his godless temperament, cannot know how it works, nor can he know the plan of the Supreme Lord. Under illusion modes of passion and ignorance, all his plans are baffled, as in the case of Hiranyakashipu and Ravana, whose plans were smashed to dust, although they were both materially learned as scientists, philosophers, administrators, and educators. These Duskritinahas, miscreants, are of four different patterns, as outlined below. The first one, the Mudas, are those who are grossly foolish, like hardworking beasts of burden. They want to enjoy the fruit of labor by themselves and so do not want to part with them for the supreme. The typical example of the beast of burden is the ass. This humble beast is made to work very hard by his master. The ass does not really know whom he works so hard day and night. He remains satisfied by filling his stomach with a bundle of grass, sleeping for a while under fear of by his master, and satisfying his sex appetite at the risk of being repeatedly kicked by the opposite party. The ass sings poetry and philosophy sometimes, but this braying sound only disturbs other. This is the position of the foolish putative workers who does not know for whom he should work. He does not know he does not know that karma action is meant for yagna sacrifice. Most often, those who work very hard day and night to clear the burden of self-creating duties say that they have no time to hear the immortality of the living beings. To such mudas, gains which are destructible are life's all in all. despite the fact that the Mudas enjoy only a very small fraction of the fruit of the labor. Sometimes they spend sleepless days and nights for fruitive gain. And although they may have ulcers or indigestion, they are unable to give any tangible reasons as to why not. They are there are others who make him subordinate to the impersonal feature, although the opposite is declared in Gita. Envious of the supreme personality of Godhead, the atheist will present a number of illicit incarnation manufactured in the factory of his brain. Such persons who very principle of life is to decry the personality of Godhead cannot surrender to lotus feet of Sri Krishna. Sri Yamunacharya Bandaru of South India said, "Oh my Lord, you are unknowable to persons involved with atheistic principles. Despite your uncom- despite your uncommon qualities, features, and activities, despite your personalities being confirmed by all the revealed scriptures in the quality of goodness, and despite your being you are being acknowledged by the famous authorities renounced for their depth of knowledge in the transcendental science and situated in the godly qualities. Therefore, first one, grossly foolish persons. Second, the lowest of mankind. The third, the deluded speculators. And fourth, the professed atheists, as above mentioned, never surrender unto the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, in spite of all scriptural and authoritative advice. Hare Krishna.
Very nice.
Pages in 2 pages in the between looks like it's a big purport. I didn't read. I just went to the. I skipped the page. I think, Prabhu. I'm sorry.
Yes, I know.
Can,
I noticed that. Why not? Would you like to read?
yeah, Prabhu.
Yeah,
I'm
go ahead.
sorry. Yeah. Actually, we were talking about Muda, the first one, and sometimes they spend sleepless days and nights for productive gain, and also, um, uh, and although they have ulcer or indigestion, they are satisfied with practically no food. They are simply absorbed, working hard day and night for the benefit of illusory master. Ignorant of their real master, the foolish workers waste their valuable time serving mammon. Unfortunately, they never surrender to the supreme master of all masters, nor do they take time to hear of him from the proper sources. The swine who eats the night soil do not care to accept sweet meats made of sugar and ghee. Similarly, the foolish worker will untiringly continue to hear of the sense enjoyable tidings of the flickering mundane world, but will have very little time to hear about the eternal living force that moves the material world. The second type is another class of dushkriti or miscreants is called Naradhama, or the lowest of mankind. Nara meaning human being, and Adhama means the lowest. Out of 84 million different species of living beings, there are 400,000 human species out there. Of these, there are numerous lower forms of human life that are mostly uncivilized. The civilized human beings are those who have regulative principles of social, political, and religious life. Those who are socially and politically developed but who have no religious principle must be considered Naradhama, nor is religion without God religion. Because the purpose of following religious principles is to know the supreme truth and man's relation with him. In the Gita, the personality of God, it clearly states that there is no authority above him and that he is the supreme truth. The civilized form of human life is meant for man, reviving the lost consciousness of his eternal relationship with the supreme truth, the supreme personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, who is all powerful. Whoever loses this chance is classified as Naradhama. We get information from revealed scriptures that when the baby is in the mother's womb, an extremely uncomfortable situation, he prays to God for the deliverance and promises to worship him alone as soon as he gets out. To pray to God when he is in difficulty is the natural instinct in every living being, because he is attached with God. But after his deliverance, the child forgets the difficulties of birth and forgets his deliverer also, being influenced by Maya, the illusory energy. It is the duty of the guardians of children to revive the divine consciousness dormant in them. The 10th process of reformatory ceremonies has enjoined Smriti, which is the guide to the principles, are meant for reviving God consciousness in the system of Varnashrama. However, no process is strictly followed now in any part of the world. And therefore, 99.9% of the population is Naradhama. When the whole population becomes Naradhama, naturally all their so-called education is made null and void by the all-powerful energy of physical nature. According to the standard of the Gita, a learned man is he who sees on equal terms the learned Brahmana, the dog, the cow, the elephant, and the dog eater. That is the vision of a true devotee. Sri Nityananda Prabhu, who is the incarnation of Godhead, has divine master, delivered the typical Naradhamas, the brothers Jagai and Sai, and showed how the mercy of a real devotee is bestowed upon the lowest of mankind. So the Naradhama, who is condemned by the personality of Godhead, can again revive his spiritual consciousness only by the mercy of the devotee. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, in propagating Bhagavad Dharma, or the of the devotees, has recommended that people submissively hear the message of the personality of Godhead. The essence of this message is Bhagavad Gita. The lowest amongst human beings can be delivered by this submissively hearing process only. But unfortunately, they even refuse to give an oral reception to these messages. And what to speak of surrendering to the will of the Supreme Lord? Naradhamas, or the lowest of mankind, will fully neglect the prime duty of the human being. Now, the next class of Dushkriti is called Mayaya Pahrata Jnanaha, or those persons whose erudite knowledge has been nullified by the influence of illusory material energy. They are mostly very learned, great philosophers, poets, um, um, l- literary scientists, etc. But the illusory energy misguides them, and therefore they disobey the Supreme Lord. There are a great number of Maya Pahrata Jnanaha. At the present moment, even amongst the scholars of the Bhagavad Gita. In the Gita, in plain and simple language, it is stated that Sri Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. There is none equal to or greater than him. He is mentioned as father of Brahma and the original father of all human beings. In fact, Sri Krishna is said to be not only the father of Brahma, but also the father of all the species of life. He is the root of impersonal Brahman and Paramatma and the super soul. Every entity entity is his plenary portion. He is the fountainhead, everything, and everyone is advised to surrender to his lotus feet, despite all months. And the Mayaya Pahrataha Jnanaha derides the derides the personality of Supreme Lord and consider him merely another human being. They do not know that the blessed form of human life is designed for the eternal and transcendental features of the Supreme Lord. All the unauthorized interpretations of the Gita by the class of Mayaya Jnana outside the purview of the parampara system are so many stumbling blocks on the path of the spiritual understanding. The deluded interpreters do not surrender unto the lotus feet of Sri Krishna, nor do they teach others to follow. The fourth class, the last class of the Dushkriti is called Asuram Bhavam Ashritaha, or those of demonic principles. This class is openly atheist. Some of them argue that the Supreme Lord can never descend to this material world, but they are unable to give any tangible reasons as to why not. They are others who make him subordinate to the impersonal feature, although the opposite is declared in Gita. Envious of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the atheist will present a number of illicit incarnation manufactured in the factory of his brain. Such whose very principle of life to decry the personality of Godhead surrender unto the lotus feet of Sri Krishna. Sri Yamunacharya Alabandaru of South India said, "Oh my Lord, you are unknowable to the involved with atheistic principles, despite your human qualities, features, and activities, despite your personalities being confirmed by all the revealed scriptures in the quality of goodness, and despite your being acknowledged by the famous authorities renowned for their depth of knowledge in the transcendental science and situated in godly qualities. Therefore, one grossly foolish person, the lowest of mankind, the deluded spirit, and the professed atheist are never surrender unto the lotus feet of the personality of Godhead in spite of all scriptural and authoritative advice."
Thank you. This is a beautiful, beautiful purport. Hare Krishna, Prahlad Prabhu, nice to see you. Somen Prabhu.
Hare Bol Prabhu.
Now the question will come, if surrendering to Krishna will bring liberation, why not everybody surrender to Krishna? Done. See, in order to answer this, Krishna spoke this verse and Srila Prabhupada gave such a details that who are those 4 types that don't surrender. So first explain Mudha, Naradhama, Maya Aparita Gyana, Ashram Bhavam Ashrita. Now, what is the purpose? Indirectly, Krishna is pointing out, or you can say criticizing about those. Because human life is supposed to bring 3 things, most important. One is the process every human being should lead their life such a way that it should bring a purification. Jagartat karmananatu. Life's purpose should be whatever we do, make sure it purifies our existence. What is that means? Means you can see the result within yourself. It will transform our consciousness. And when it transforms our consciousness, our thinking, our awareness, our feeling changes. You can detect within yourself. What will be the result? Satisfaction. That's why in previous chapter 6, I remember we read that Prabhupada says all this education, so-called education, is useless. Now, I'm not going to go out and tell a doctor or PhD or somebody, your education is useless. Unless I understand why Prabhupada says it's useless. Because those material education does not purify the soul's existence. He's bound to, or I would say forced to, take rebirth to some species that he has no idea, no clue. Then what was the purposeful endeavor to get the PhD or whatever it is? So on the basis of 3 things, we should always in the forefront keep it, whatever we do. Is it purifying? Is it transforming? And if it is, then see if you are happy. Happy means you're thinking of Krishna. So let's look one more time what Prabhupada says. Very interesting. Say, first Krishna says, Namam Duskritana Mura. Actually, those who are Mura, foolish, they do not surrender unto me. Duskriti no. So Krishna is talking here 4 kinds of people who do not surrender to him. Now in previous verse, when we read few weeks back, Krishna said, by surrendering to him, people will get free from illusion. The famous verse, Daivihi Esha Gunamayi Mama Maya Durattaya Mame Vaje Prapadante Mayam Etam Tarantite. Then the question comes, if it is possible to become free from illusion by surrender to Krishna, why not everybody in America become free from illusion? Why not they surrender? Now Krishna is answering to that question. They are duskriti now. That's why they are not surrendering. What is kriti? Kriti means activity. In fact, it means meritorious activity. Kriti. Duskriti means not meritorious activity, but notorious activity. In India, they use that word, notorious. Activity in wrong direction. So Krishna is saying, Namam prapadante, do not surrender to me. Who are those people? Mudha. 4 categories. Krishna is saying Mudha is the foolish. Naradhama, lowest among men. Mother Rashmiji just read. Maya aparita jnana, those whose knowledge is stolen by illusion. And asurim bhavam ashrita, those who are outright demoniac people. Now, these 4 categories whom then represent. Srila Prabhupada, we just heard, gives elaborate purport. Who are those 4 kinds of people? Now, some extent could be within me. So it should be detecting, not pointing out to somebody else about those 4. Interestingly, if we look at the previous Acharya's commentary, like Vishwanath Chakravarti Pad or Baladev Vidyabhushan, Ramanuja Acharya, and here also mentioned Madhacharya. Now all of them describe slightly difference, I found, interestingly. They explain this category referred to different kinds of people. So what does it mean? Actually, we need to understand that scriptural knowledge is not just text, but it is also in context. Context means it has to be relevant. Many times we heard that we have to preserve the purity of the knowledge. Yes, there should not be any speculation. There should not be any speculation, means no deviation. That is true. But one important thing which we have to preserve, which is part of tradition, is the relevance. Just like Natad Bhasyate Surya no Sasanko no Pavako. If you are translating yourself in a lexicographic way, if you know the Sanskrit and you have an English dictionary, Sanskrit to English, and if you translate, Natad Bhasyate Surya no Sasanko no Pavako, you do not see anywhere it says electricity. Sasanko means moon and sun. Bhasyate Surya means sun, and there is no moon, there is no sun. Now Prabhupada translated, there is no moon, there is no sun, there is no electricity. Now if you say, why Prabhupada added this? Because most of the people in this world, they survive by the electricity. They cook by electricity. They work in an air-conditioned room. Everything they do, like almost their lifestyle in their home, is all run by electricity. So Prabhupada was giving a relevance to understand that in Golok Vrindavan you don't need electricity. There is no electricity. Nobody pays bill or anything. So just to give that demonstration. So that if our presentation of scripture is not relevant, then actually we are not faithful to the tradition. Because relevance is the integral part of the tradition which has to be preserved. And Prabhupada is genius on that. I mentioned before when one big, apparently drug dealer, I won't say the name, he's a good devotee. He was a big drug dealer. I mean, he helped a lot. When he saw many of his men became devotee in California, he came to Prabhupada, and he asked Prabhupada, what is spiritual happiness means? I see a lot of my friends left my business. He was very honest. He told I was doing drug business and they left and they are happy. What is this spiritual happiness? Now, Prabhupada says spiritual happiness is like an ocean of LSD. Now, if you say, which Shastra said that? Why did Prabhupada say spiritual world is ocean of LSD? Now, this person has no clue why. He never did any austerity or spiritual thing, anything. From his childhood, he grew up like a tough Western parents, family, and whatever education he got. So then when he was in the college, he got into drug, and that's it. That's his life. Drug is the only thing he knows. Even one of his friends told to Prabhupada that he thinks LSD is the best thing in the world. So when Prabhupada says it's the ocean of LSD, spiritual world, he said, that's it, I'm joining right now. So my point is, the purpose is served. Prabhupada brought him to Krishna consciousness, and you can see today, after 50 years, he's still chanting and going. He gave up this drug, and he understood it is nothing to do with the LSD, even though he fell for it. He understood that this is the ultimate purpose. So Prabhupada was very genius. He was making it very relevant to each individual. Ramanujacharya writing commentary 10th, 11th century. So when he was going to present a commentary, he's going to observe people around him that time. Think who are those people which fit this category. Now those expressions may be relevant later also. But the nature of Maya is that ignorance, avidya, constantly keeps on getting updated. Avidya, ignorance, Maya Devi is very expert to keep up with the modern education or whatever the human being doing it. With her help, she is also keeping her ignorance level. As Prabhupada said, more you become advanced, Maya has a better trap to pull you back. What does it mean? Avidya keeps of coming in newer brand. Ultimately, it is same old thing. It is excuse of rationalization or justification for forgetting Krishna. And that is what essence of Maya is. But Maya comes in newer and newer brands, countering the latest brand of Maya is the tradition of the Acharya. So Maya keeps updating herself, and Acharya keeps on updating their refutation, how to refute that, how the tradition is. That is how there are some core principle that remains true. But Acharya gives commentary to counter the current version of Maya prevalent at that times. You'll be surprised what Prabhupada said in 1960s, 70s in his purport is so relevant today. It's like you think like, did Prabhupada just wrote this purport yesterday? He knew what is coming. It was a very eye-opening. So those conceptions may cause people to go into delusion. That is why those conceptions are not always same for everyone. Because Maya herself comes in different ways. For an example, Baladev Vidyabhushan, writing commentary on Vedanta Sutra in Govinda Vaishya commentary, he will explain, he will refute the five system of philosophy apart from Vedanta. Now, the system of philosophy are also not static. There are different scholars on those traditions who has commentators or commentaries. So whatever thought at that particular time, they will be refuted by Baladev Vidyabhushan while drawing insight from universal time independent principles that are taught in the scriptures. Now, Srila Prabhupada, when he is presenting his commentary, he will draw from same time independent universal principles. But he will address issue of his time. So for example, during Srila Prabhupada's time, there is conflict between communist and capitalist. You know, in 60s, 70s, America and Russia. I'm sure Prahladanda Prabhu, those who are grown up, older, you are aware the biggest thing between Russia and America is going to the moon and so many things. Who can discover the better things between the Russia and America? And Russia and America was like a most prominent until today. America is still the prominent country in the world. So Prabhupada addressed this repeatedly in his purport. Now, 1,000 years from now, there may not be Russian name or American name. That doesn't matter. The new Acharya will come and they will bring those relevant and they will explain why. So if you look at Srila Prabhupada, look at these four categories. These four categories will be explained by different Acharya in different ways because they are responding to specific brands of Maya, specific sets of misconception, those which are misleading people of their times. So Mura means donkey. You'll see many places Prabhupada writes, Mura. Even in Bengal, I remember in Calcutta, they say, hey, Buddhu hai. he's a fool or some kind of. And in the village also sometimes they say Mura. Mura means like a donkey type of people. Means they are human, look like human, but their activity is like a donkey. Now that means a person who is foolish like a donkey. The opposite of the word Mura, if you go to near Nalanda in Bihar, they have a big Buddha stupa. I went there one time, many years back. Buddha is a wise person. Actually, Buddha is related to Buddhi. And Buddha in Buddhistic tradition context is enlightened person. So who is Mudha? They will say Mudha is a person like a donkey. Now Srila Prabhupada purport in this section is quite eloquent. Let us look at some sections Srila Prabhupada's purport over here. The swine who eat the night soil do not care to accept sweet meats made of sugar and ghee. Similarly, foolish worker will unflinchingly continue to hear of the sense enjoyable tidings of the flickering mundane world, but will have very little time to hear about eternal living force that moves the material world. So in this explanation, Mudha, Srila Prabhupada includes another animal. Baraha is a hog. Hog eats night soil. Night soil means stool. So hog eats stool. If he is given some sweet meat, he says, I won't prefer that. So somebody may say why do you blame a hog? A hog is acting simply according to nature. Halwa, I'm sure you all know halwa, because in ISKCON, halwa is a very famous, popular. Even today, we had a big lunch in Lal Govinda Prabhu's house, and there was a big halwa. I could not eat because there was too many sweets. Anyway, it was like an overwhelming eating. But why should we judge hog according to our standard? What is food for hog is different than what is food for us. So actually the point here is not the hog does not have its own diet. The point here is that what is refuse of the human being, that which smells nasty, that which is abominable, that is what the hog eats. When we are giving any scriptural example, we have to understand that we are giving from a particular perspective. So from the point of a perspective, we have to understand what is being taught. Whenever the scriptures teach something, the point that they are teaching is that we have to learn some lesson. So here the lesson is lack of discriminating ability. So if we human beings are given a choice of false smelling substance and delicious substance, naturally we will choose delicious substance. The person who chooses faulty substance lacks intelligence. I mean, you all will agree. Similarly, we say hogs lacks intelligence over here. So here we are not talking about the way nature has made different living beings with a different taste. That is the fact of nature. We don't deny that fact and animal. Sorry. So largely, so when we're looking from the point of view how nature has made different living beings, we can simply see that hogs are simply acting according to nature. But the point is from enlightened perspective, from the perspective of intelligent human being, was aligned oneself according to scripture. From that perspective, the hog is lacking discrimination. So the point here is not specific, but generic principle, that the inability to discriminate what is palatable and what is unpalatable. But donkey carries huge burden. Now donkey or hog, what does donkey do? Donkey works. I mean, in America, I don't think you see it. But in India, if you go, you'll see. I saw in Calcutta, when I was a young boy, in Calcutta, donkey carries the laundry. Even though Calcutta is a big city, but laundryman has a donkey carrying the big load. I don't know, maybe not now, but 35, 40 years back, they used to do it. So donkey carry bundle of clothes for little grass. Grass can be gotten anywhere, but donkey carries huge bundle because donkey thinks that I have to do this so that I get some grass. So actually eating, sleeping, mating, defending, these are bodily pleasure. And all living beings are getting that. So human being who works terribly hard, I'm sure all of you will agree, to get that, they are missing out, they are losing out. They are depriving themselves of what can be available for them, what will be far more beneficial for them. What is that? They are depriving themselves of higher taste, the higher fulfillment that is available through spiritual advancement and devotional connection with Lord Sri Krishna. So the point of mudha example which Srila Prabhupada gives is actually people work hard simply for animalistic pleasure, eating, sleeping, mating, defending. Don't have to work so hard, but they keep working hard. I hope everybody understand. In ISKCON, we talk so much about Varnashram. But the Varnashram purpose, when Prabhupada talks about Varnashram, he's not talking about just details of Varnashram only. He's talking about the simple living, high thinking, like Vrindavan conception. Vrindavan, you don't hear the gopis and everybody's busy of building a big house or palace. They have a simple living, but they are all unlimitedly happy, joyful. This is what spirituality began, and this is required. Of course, the material forces, we think more we have material things, we will be happy, but it is proven not true. Nowadays, people are full of stress because of overwork. And most of these overwork are because of self-created duties. Self-created duties means one sets up one's own goals, one pursues those goals, and one gets into trouble because of that. There is muras. Namam duskrituna mura prabhaddante naradama. So mura is a person who is caught up in working hard for sense pleasure. For the same thing which animal also gets. One just work hard and hard and hard, does not think. That's why Srila Prabhupada explained Naradhama, Nara and Adhama. If you break it, that word, Nara, Adhama, Naradhama. Adhama is lowest, and Nara means human being. So that person is lowest among human beings. What does this refer to? You can all think. This refers to those human beings who has no spiritual inclination. See, what makes human being human is their spiritual potential. I hope you can, and I can give you a lot of reference from 11th Canto Bhagavatam. Krishna talks about it. Manushya, Manuishya. They have a sense of spiritual inquisitiveness. Spiritual potential is what makes you a being as a human being. So human being is a particular physical form that also characterizes human being. That is true. But more than that, from the scriptural perspective, the human form means a particular level of consciousness. And that consciousness involves the capacity for spiritual realization. So if we consider continuum is a wide spectrum of consciousness, of level of consciousness, which human beings can have. So highest are those who have most evolved consciousness. They are having love for Krishna. In Jaiva Dharma study, I remember we studied that there is a 5 level of consciousness. Avarita, Sankuchita, Mukulita, Vikashita, Purna Vikashita. These are very illuminating, and it actually pushes us. No, I need to advance fast. You talk to yourself. I don't want to waste my time. Human being is the only life. As a cat, dog, there is no wasting life. I mean, these are already wasted. That birth is like, because they cannot develop love for Krishna. So Krishna, love for Krishna, then those who are lesser connection for Krishna, they be in this continuum of different location, lowest in spectrum. Who are they? Who have no interest in spiritual life at all. They are just not interested in spiritual life, so they have sabotaged, destroyed their spiritual perspective by their lack of spiritual sensibility. Now, Srila Prabhupada says here, those who are socially and politically developed, but who has no religious principle, must be considered Naradhamas. I thought that was like a far out, simple English he wrote, but it's so powerful. So they are socially, politically developed, but they have no religious principles. That means they are not developed what makes them distinctive human. So that is what makes them Naradhamas. Naradhama. Then Srila Prabhupada makes this point, nor is religion without God religion. It's interesting, isn't it? You will find there are many people practice some religion without God. But you cannot call that as a religion. But they will call. I mean, one of the biggest religion group in this world, they do not talk about God, but they are also considered as a religion. Many, actually, few, now I remember. Nowadays, there are religions which claim themselves religion, but they don't acknowledge Krishna or God. In today's culture, Prabhus and mothers, nomenclature, they may be called religion, but the point is they have defied essential principle of religion. The essential principle is to obey Krishna, God, surrender to him. Dharmam tu sakshat bhagavat pranitam. What is dharma? Dharma means is to follow the will of God, follow the instruction of God. Then Srila Prabhupada talks about how Naradhama know what is tragedy of Naradhama. Actually, all of us need God. When we are in womb and the pain become, I would say, extreme, we all suffer. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur wrote a song, Janani Jatare Chilama Jakana Bishama Bandhana Pashe, that we called out Krishna at that time. When he called out Krishna, we beg for his mercy. We seek his mercy at that time. What happens when we call to Krishna to help us? We recognize Krishna, realize Krishna's presence. Krishna manifests to us. But because surrender to Krishna at that time is immature. Because somebody will be thinking, some one of us, what happened when we came out? Why did you forget? Surrender part was not there. In the sense that we have not surrendered because of free will. We have to surrender because of force. So when we surrender this way to Krishna at that time, that surrender is not mature. I mean, if you don't have any option, you just think like, okay, I'm just going to be a devotee. But you really don't embrace Krishna or don't want to really follow these 6 limbs of surrender. Just the word itself is not really surrender. I saw some time when somebody is extremely in pain or a litigation, like one person had tremendous court case and he could not get, he came to temple. Of course, it's not bad, but he as soon the case is over, he won, he didn't even show up anymore. It's just gone back to his normal. So those are not surrendered soul. And they have to go through struggle again. So Srila Prabhupada reminds us there is a gravest suffering in the womb. We have ourselves prayed to Krishna. Please help me, Krishna. Those people who stayed in illusion, Srila Prabhupada talking from 2 perspectives, I say. One is human body has a capacity for spiritual inquiry. When the soul is in human embryo, human womb, at that time soul began the spiritual call also. Began the spiritual journey by calling the Lord. But then puts it aside, neglect it for the sake of worldly pleasure. So the difference in Mura and Naradama is Mura, they are so busy in sensual pleasure that even if they have some spiritual inclination, they don't give time for spiritual inclination. But Naradama, their spiritual inclination are so much relegated to the corner that as if it is not present only. And Srila Prabhupada said, by the mercy of Krishna, as it has come to the mercy of to Jagai and Madai, even Naradamas can be elevated. I love that, the way Prabhupada said it. And the third category is Maya Aparita, Aparita Jnana. This is discussed in Sri Ishopanishad, I remember. Also discussed in Bhagavad Gita 2.43. There we have discussed in Veda Bada Rata. Those who follows Veda but think that goal of Vedas is to do sense gratification. Then there are those who not follow the Vedas, who use their intelligence just for material improvement, and purpose of knowledge is lost. For them, they have knowledge, but the purpose of knowledge is stolen away from them by Maya, Maya Aparita Jnana. What do? I go to church. Why? So I don't have to go to hell. Oh, that's it? No, I'll go to heaven. Oh, for your own sense enjoyment future, you go to church. These are this category. So, jnana is there, they have knowledge, you can say, or they go to God. But it is stolen by Maya. How come they have knowledge and it's stolen by Maya? Maya Aparita Jnana is very interesting, the word Krishna put. Maya Aparita Jnana. You think like, wow, how genius Krishna the way he put the English, Sanskrit word. So this refers to all kinds of intellectual. They can be scientists, philosopher, author, speaker. These people may have intelligence, but unfortunately, ultimate purpose of intelligence they have lost. Because of that, whatever they do, they caught up in illusion. It is like a person in jail. He uses all his intelligence in understanding about the things in jail. Suppose the person has done a PhD about understanding about the structure done in jail. This knowledge is useful, but when in jail, the person thinks, how can get out of jail? Not necessary that I have to break out of jail. But is there a process by which I reform myself and get released from the jail? The important point is I need to come out of the jail. Same way, when we talk about material existence, the most important knowledge is about the knowledge that can free us from misery, that can bring us liberation. So what is that knowledge? You may ask. That knowledge is what Sri Krishna gives in Bhagavad Gita. Those people who are intelligent still neglect that knowledge is unfortunate. And you'll see amongst us sometimes, some people come close, but they're not interested to surrender. These people may study the scriptures and wrongly interpret scriptures. There are plenty in this world. So they may study Bhagavad Gita, write commentary on it. The purpose of Bhagavad Gita is to surrender to Krishna. But if they reject the purpose and give some other concocted purpose, they are also falling in the category of Maya Aparita Jnana. And the last one, Asuram Bhavam Ashrita, what I understood, that Maya Aparita Jnana, their conclusion may be misled, misleading, or you can say anti-devotional. But they don't have necessarily agenda against God. It is just that they end up their interpretation going against God. They don't know the ultimate goal. But Asuram Bhavam Ashrita are the people who, in deep of their heart, are having demoniac envy toward God. They make it their mission to defy, deride, demolish other people's faith in God. I'm not asking anyone of searching about it, but I did a couple of times in Google. Oh my God, there's it. You talking about thousands of websites. How there is no God, it's not possible. If there is God, why so many things goes wrong? And they go on and on and on and on, and they will go on. And I'm talking about this category. It is not like some time before when Krishna spoke. I'm talking about now, how Prabhupada relevant example he's giving. And such people are outright atheists. They are not just atheists, they are fanatical atheists. So Asuram Bhavam Ashrita, meaning of fanatical atheism, is they believe atheism is the only truth and religion is illusion. So religion is the curse on the earth. Religion is the source of evil. They literally says. I remember when New Orleans, what was that, few years back, tsunami hits. It was such a terrible. And there was a big article in the front of this local newspaper. I said, if there's God, why such a horrible, tremendous? Therefore, the conclusion is there is no God. It's like horrible. I remember we also got into that newspaper and gave our comment. So Krishna gives us different category of people in this way. They cannot surrender to Krishna. Now these people stays on a material existence. We should not think that only people explicitly in this category does not surrender to Krishna. We may ourselves have these tendencies in some ways. We may have some mudha tendencies, some maya aparita jnana tendencies, because of which we will be checked, not allowed to move, and choked, not only checked, also choked, means allowed to move in a small size of flow in our surrender to Krishna completely. So I should also check whether I have those. Srila Prabhupada quotes, as Mother Rashmi Devi read, he quotes Jamanacharya's verse, how these kinds of people are not surrendered to Sri Krishna. Jamanacharya, what's his name? Ala Bandaru, said, oh my Lord, you are unknowable to persons involved with atheistic principle, despite your uncommon qualities, features, and activities, despite your personalities being confirmed by all the revealed scripture in the quality of goodness, and despite you being acknowledged by the famous authorities, renowned for their depth of knowledge in the transcendental science and situated in godly qualities. So these are the some points. I made a little notes. It's very important. These verses are very important. Next verse also we'll do next week. That's also very important. And you can think like, is the donkey the role model of Bhagavad Gita? You know, somebody I remember asked one time. I mean, you may say like, how did you come up with that? Because in Bengal, there, I will not mention the name. One big personality, he during the freedom fighters movement, Mahatma Gandhi's movement, even Prabhupada was there. One Bengali leader, he said, work is worship. It's like, wow. Until today, many thousands of so-called intellectual people in Calcutta, they believe that. Maybe all over India, I don't know, but in Calcutta I saw. They believe work is worship. Even I remember one person told me, he said, hard work will pay off, Govind. I said, I don't think so. It doesn't work that way. But they believe work is worship. It's a central teaching of Bhagavad Gita, they think. So claim many people. If they're right, you know, I thought about it, then shouldn't the donkey be the Gita's role model? Because donkey works the generally understood very hard. But Gita doesn't refer to the donkey in a laudatory terms, even once. Quite to the contrary, it repeatedly referred to the donkey's mudha. Namam duskritina mudha. I would say in derogatory terms, as a metaphor to underscore the short-sightedness of people. with no spiritual insight or interest. So donkey is habituated to behave in a thoughtlessly self-torturous way. It carries gigantic loads for tiny rewards, lumps of grass, and it could get even without carrying loads. I remember Gaur Govinda Maharaj narrated a beautiful pastime. It's called Sundar Gandharva. No, Sundar Gandharva, something, the name, he gave a fancy name. That how a laundryman had a donkey, and his entire income was depending on the donkey carrying the load of clothes from the river to the people's houses. He has to carry and deliver it, and he would wash clothes. So the donkey died, and he felt like a completely helpless. Now, who is going to carry all these loads? And his life is ruined. But donkey died, so he's crying for his own self, own needs, not for the donkey really. He's crying for his help is lost. So then one Brahmana suggested him that you should do some rituals for the donkey. He worked so hard for you. He said, what should I do? He said, shave your head. So he shaved his head. And he did some rituals by this Brahmana. So then advisor of the minister who would walk by every day to go to the palace, he saw this laundryman first time shaved head. He said, what happened? Sunanda Gandharva. Now Krishna reminded the word. Maharaj used to quote this story. He says, Sunanda Gandharva. So he told the minister, oh, Sunanda Gandharva died. He didn't even say donkey, because in India, when you call an animal some name, you just use that name. That name belongs to an animal or something, you don't, unless somebody asks, generally assume. So he says, Sunanda Gandharva died. Beautiful name when you think of Sunanda Gandharva. It sounds like a great personality or something. So he shaved. So then when this Brahmana, who is the advisor to the minister, he said, what happened? He said, Sunanda Gandharva died. My gratitude and my respect, I just shaved. So then this Brahmana fell back. He went home. Instead of going to palace, he shaved. So he goes to the palace. The minister says, what happened to you? Why you shaved? Your head? He said, because today is the day Sunanda Gandharva died. Oh, wow. Sunanda Gandharva died. What should I do? He said, you should shave head. So the minister also shaved his head. Now then the minister goes to the court. The king said, what happened to you? He said, today is the day Sunanda Gandharva died. So, wow. So what should I do? He said, I think you should shave your head if it is okay, my lord. He's the king. So king said, why not? So he also shaved. Finally, the queen comes. Queen said, what happened to you? Why did you shave? You came back home. You came back to your private palace instead of court. He said, I shaved because today Sunanda Gandharva died. So queen asked, who is Sunanda Gandharva? So then he said, I'm not sure. I have to ask the minister. So queen pursued this, went to the minister, who is Sunanda Gandharva? He said, I'm not sure either. The Brahmana who advised me, he suggested. So she asked for that Brahmana. The Brahmana says, oh, it's the laundryman. So laundryman asked, it was a donkey. Gaur Govinda Maharaj said, this kind of donkey, now all of them are donkey, all the way to the king. Because they never inquired, they just did it because the fancy name, Sunanda Gandharva. Nowadays, it's like that. People act, people do things just for the external. They never inquire what is the purpose of life, where is going to take me, what I'm doing, what will be the outcome of it. They don't. So in that sense, they are all Muda. Anyway, sorry. But this is what one of the biggest sloka that Prabhupada quote many times. And when devotee, no, not devotee, actually Arjo Samaj asked, but you are criticizing. He said, I'm not criticizing, I'm repeating what Krishna says. Prabhupada was very straightforward. He said, I'm not criticizing, I'm repeating what Krishna pointed out. But of course, Prabhupada has his own translation, how relevant to our life. Thank you, Prabhus and mothers. Any further takeaway or reflection?
Hari Bol, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna, Praladananda.
There is a slok which comes to my mind from 10th canto, which says, Yasyatma buddhi kuna pitridha dukhe.
Satirtha buddhi kalilena karhicha.
So that's where this Buddha
Yes. Prabhupada quote that verse also many times. Yes, you are right. Very good, very good. Yes. It's a famous verse because spoken by Krishna to the sages. Yes. Very true. Very true. Thank you. Any other? Or we can close and we'll see you all next week. Param Karuna Prabhu. Yes, Prabhu.
So as you told that that is material education and material qualification, just because, but how we should develop that consciousness? Because
Param Karuna Prabhu, I have a little problem of hearing. Is it me or everybody is?
Can you hear now?
It's little better. Yes.
Okay, I think stop the thing. So Prabhu, as you told that material education is just a hindrance in the path of bhakti. How we can develop that consciousness? Because when we go for books, and let me, I have a very good high level of education, like, and when I have people come on me and they look in a very bad way when I do books, I feel that, hey, why are you doing this? So how can we absorb that material education is really hindrance in the path of Krishna consciousness, which we know, but we forget it because the people, when you go to big schools, then they come with the education and their certificate. It makes us feel that how can I challenge these people? What should I do?
I could not hear completely, but what I understood, you are saying that material education, or in other words, how should we perceive?
Yeah.
We are not against material education, neither Prabhupada. Prabhupada is not against the scientist either. If you look at very scrutinizingly, Prabhupada is pointing out the mistake of the scientist or atheist view of the scientist. We are not against scientist or material education. But Prabhupada point out very clear. When you have time, Prabhu, you look at in 6.8 Bhagavad Gita. I remember we read that. Prabhupada says that book knowledge without realization of the supreme truth is useless. Now that's a very heavy statement. If you say book knowledge is useless, but then he gives a breakdown, or that's how I see it. The three things. Because the material education will never bring any purification. We are trapped in a body conscious or mind conscious. We are not trapped in a Krishna conscious. Material education promotes those body consciousness and mental consciousness. So that's why there is no purification. And because there is no purification, there is no transformation. There is no consciousness transformation. We are conscious being. As a result, no satisfaction. So no purification, no transformation, no satisfaction. That's why material education is useless. Now, nowadays, we use airplane, we use even online, literally, I'm being honest to you, sometime in Bhagavad Gita, before I find the book, to find that sloka, I can go. If my computer is on, you just type it and it pops. I say, wow, this is so easy. You can literally on Google's, you put Srimad Bhagavatam. I already have those like automatically. I write SRI, automatically Srimad Bhagavatam pops. And you just change the number, it gives in you 1 second. Otherwise, I have to find the pages. So we are using material facilities, whatever it is, technology, and we can actually bring people to Krishna consciousness through that, those who are. But point is, if the material education does not help us to purify or transform our our consciousness, it is definitely useless. Also, material education without spiritual education can give false pride. Definitely. You are right. But at the same time, people has a natural inclination to get educated, which is good as long they can use it for Krishna's service. Prabhupada was giving so much importance on the BI, Bhaktivedanta Institute. And Prabhupada allowed them to wear suit and tie. And they came, you all know that story, and they came with a suit and tie, with a briefcase. Prabhupada said, that looks good. You should now go to the universities. And they're all PhD, doctorate, and Prabhupada was very favorable. He said, this is good. Now you go and preach, and you tell them that life comes from life. This was his first instruction. Life does not come from matter. And that's why Swarup Damodar Maharaj, he was also PhD. He wrote this whole book. It's so nice. But at the same time, you are right. Material education can actually become a stumble block if we don't want to become Krishna conscious. Sure, it can pull us down to material, lower birth. Material education means it develop an attachment to the matter, sense gratification. That's all. It doesn't do anything spiritual. So from that angle, yes, Prabhu, you are right. I hope that gives you some idea. Thank you. Thank you. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Vancha kalpataru vishya kripa sindhu vacha. Patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namo. Srila Prabhupada